Hello class, my name is Foreman, and today I'll be presenting you the presentation of the film titled Crude, The Real Price of Oil. A quick summarization of the story. The film was a story of one of the largest and most controversial environmental lawsuits in the entire world. It consisted of a lawsuit filed by over 30,000 Ecuadorians against Chevron, this being over the contamination of the Ecuadorian Amazon. It was also well known as the Amazon Chernobyl case. The event took place in the Ecuadorian part of the Amazon rainforest. In a few minutes I'll show you a map and kind of map out exactly where this took place. In 1960, the Ecuadorian government opened the Amazon region to oil exploration. Texaco took part on this, took the opportunity for the oil exploration within the area. It lasted for a little over 3 decades before Texaco sold the exploration back to the Ecuadorian government in 1992. Looking at the map here, the exact region that was affected on this is roughly just about due east of the Puyo area. Excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly. Right about over here, just about an inch or so, of course from my screen, looking at the map here. If you notice from the legend as well, we are of course still in the Amazon region. This was the area affected, and it was also, as we'll see in a film clip a little later on during our discussion, it was actually the size of the state of Rhode Island here in the United States. So it was a fairly large region, especially for this size of a country. Turning into the case here, in 1993, the Amazon indigenous populations, also known as Ecuadorians, filed a class action lawsuit against Texaco. This was not your ordinary case. A normal court case, as you may know, is tried only in court. However, this particular case consisted of the judge as well as the people from both the U.S. and Ecuador wandering through the Amazon rainforest. So instead of having a normal in-style court case with the whole gavel and everything, they ended up bringing this outside, traveling through the Amazon rainforest and actually going through all the land, examining everything, both all the lawyers and of course the judge, and going through to really get a in-depth detail as to this entire case, being this was the world's largest case and of course the world's most expensive case. It also allowed the Ecuadorians to better exemplify the items being tried in the case, which consisted of, but of course not limited to, the polluted water sources and of course the numerous illnesses. You know, as the judges and the lawyers were able to both see the people of those tribes and actually understand how badly they were affected by this whole exploration that began back in 1960, and of course the diseases as such still continue on today, unfortunately. The case, like I said, began in 1993 in the United States. However, in 2003, roughly 10 years later, Chevron, who was merged with Texaco, of course becoming the name of Chevron, had the case transferred to the Ecuadorian courts. The reason, when I was researching for the transfer, was the request by Chevron, but there was no exact reasoning as to why they wanted the transfer of the case over to the Ecuadorian judges. So unfortunately, I'll still do some research, see if I can get back with some answers on that. But at this point in time, that's all I know, is that it was transferred by the request of Chevron. Now I've got a couple photos here of the polluted water. Looking at this first photo here, you will notice that this is just a picture taken with, of course, a standard camera. Looking at the water, as you know, you're wanting to put your hand inside it, so it's almost like a reflection type. But you can see the oil marks, you know, like the oil splotches and everything on top of the water surface, of course reflected by the sunshine. The second picture here on the screen, this is a pond, of course, really nearby a excuse me, nearby one of the drilling facilities. You can see everything's covered in just black tarry oil, including all the trash in it. So you can see there's also, of course, a lot of pollution within the area due to all this mess. The environmental impact on this, it hurt the environment tremendously. Numerous ways it affected the environment, of course. You got anywhere from looking at how much land became unusable, habitats destroyed. But when you look at habitats destroyed, not only looking at the animal habitats, but even I'd say the human habitats, the areas where these humans reside from. Land was being, land being taken away was forcing these folks out of their, original habitats, or homes, if you want to call them, and outward. Excuse me. Not only for the, the protection for themselves, but of course protection of their family and for a better life. A little fact here: the population of the wildlife decreased by over 50% during this 30-year period of the exploration. So that does give us a real good demonstration and an example of how severe this was. The picture I'm showing here, this used to be a small pond. This actually, within the movie, they actually told us that this was 15 inches deep of basically black oil tar, and of course it is simple crude oil, but it's more or less a tar-based oil. So again, that's 15 inches. That of course that's well over a foot. But you can just notice in the picture here, all the tar oil on the stick. It's a very sticky and thick type of oil as well. So of course, for animals to swallow that, and even humans, it doesn't digest as fast. The main issue was illnesses, of course. This is more or less the main part in the lawsuit, on top of the contamination. The suit charges that Texaco caused illnesses such as cancer, leukemia, and even birth defects by diverting its waste byproducts into the streams, rivers, and what the Ecuadorians call as unapproved dumping areas. So these ponds that we have seen in the previous pictures and stuff, they were, of course, what we quoted as unapproved dumping areas, or unlined dumping areas is what their specific term is. Turning back to the case, however, Chevron, and again, Texaco and Chevron did merge back in 2001, which is why we keep hearing the terms Texaco and the term Chevron used. They're both the exact same company at this point in time. Looking at it in this point in time of 2001 and beyond. So this is the reason, again, why we're calling it Chevron, in occasion. Texaco, you basically use it in the past tense. And Chevron also inherited the lawsuit after merging with Texaco as well back in 2001. But anyway, Chevron blames Petro Ecuador, which is the company who bought when Texaco sold the exploration in 1992. In 1993, Petroecuador bought the company. This is, however, they blame Ecuador, excuse me, for the environmental damage. Its claim is that when the company was sold to Petroecuador, an agreement granted impunity to Texaco for past and future environmental combinations. So what that means is, whether or not it was contaminated or it wasn't, it's still Petroecuador's fault and the Ecuadorian government. The Texaco Chevron has nothing to do with it today, so it should not be anything held to their leisure, their fault, or anything like that. I do want to bring up this one quote. Joe Berlinger is he was the director of this film, and this was during an interview that he had in a news article. Excuse me, folks. The quote basically states, "I am not trying to say who should win the legal case. I am not a lawyer or a scientist. I'm simply putting the arguments out there and saying the plaintiffs, meaning the indigenous people, have suffered terribly, regardless of whether Texaco is legally responsible or not. And, in my opinion, Chevron and the government certainly have a moral responsibility to clean up the area." This was a very, I guess you could say, a strong quote when you are reading it. Mainly because once you actually watch the film clip, on top of that, read up, you can do some research on some of these articles, you can really get a sense of, the way that Joe here was feeling, and it really helps you get a better understanding, of how the severity of this, To finalize, this was my works cited. Other than that, that was our presentation. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to work with me in class. I'll definitely work to get your questions answered. Otherwise, thank you so much.